Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Jamie and today I'm introducing you to the father of the legend, the legendary EMD SD40. Today's featured model is made by Kato and we have two separate liveries to showcase, the CP rail in maroon and the iconic Conrail livery. I'll be first discussing the history, the model itself, and how it compares to other models on this channel. However, before I carry on, if you are interested in further reviews, builds and progress on my layout, do remember to click the like and subscribe button. The history. The SD40 is a 3,000 horsepower 6-axle mainline freight unit equipped with the brand new EMD 645 prime mover. Designed to replace the earlier road switcher units made by EMD such as the SD7, 9 and the 35. The earlier 567 prime mover was already reaching the limits of its horsepower. The new 645 prime mover kept the same stroke while increasing displacement to allow for more horsepower. However, let's go back to where it all began for the SD40 in July 1964. The first testbed for the SD40 was developed. Originally based on the previous generation of SD35 frame, testbed EMD434 was fitted as an SD40 and would serve till 2009 until it was retired by Canadian National Rail and donated to the Monticello Railway Museum. Later in 1966, the first SD40s would roll off the line. It featured improvements over the previous generation of SD units, including an AR10 alternator, D77 traction motors, and a new AC-DC transmission with new control devices. This meant that the new SD40 was a new level of high-power locomotive and was more efficient than previous models. The first 8 test models were later sold off to Union Pacific, where they served greatly. It was later replaced by the SD40-2, a true legend of the rails. However, that is a topic for another video. Rebuilt. However, as the SD40 aged gracefully, many railroads decided to upgrade them with -2 electronics to what we would call the SD40-3. This was to allow for better fuel economy, traction control, and electronic control over the independent and automatic brake. Southern Pacific would also rebuild their units in 1981 and rename them to the SD40R. Another SD40s, 6 SDP45s, and 97 SD45s were rebuilt into what we would know as the SD40M-2. Today, many SD40s have survived the cutter's torch and have been preserved or still running with many short lines. Now we will continue on to the actual review of the model, that is the Kato SD40, and hopefully enjoy. We'll be mainly talking about the actual, a little bit of the running and the actual detail of the model itself. And I'll meet you there. So what we're going to do is we're going to do it individually. So we're going to have the CP rail first, and then later on we'll be talking about the Conrail. So a lot of my grievances will be directed to the CP rail because honestly a lot of my issues with the actual Conrail, honestly it's fantastic model, it looks right. However, there are some issues with the CP rail in terms of authenticity and accuracy. Now if you're not a person who cares about that stuff, if you just want to hear the good stuff, yes, it runs amazingly. There's no issues about that. Where I'm going to talk about accuracy in issues like this will be quite relevant, especially if you are someone who wants to use this as the actual, not trailing unit, front unit basically. So let's get into that. So the first issue you're going to notice is, silly as it sounds, the actual rear half of the engine is actually pretty on par. However, this is where it gets really interesting. So, on Canadian Pacific units of SD40s and a lot of the other ones, one thing you'll notice is the headlight, or if you've already noticed this, I'll give you a moment to sort of stream it and to your computer. But basically, the actual headlight position is wrong. So for context, I've got my Alco C424 here, just to indicate where the headlight should be. So on the actual model and in real life, the headlight is actually built to what we'd just call like the normal SD40. Now, so on here, you'll notice that the actual headlight is actually a lot higher than it should be. And in that position, it should actually be a bell. So that is something quite interesting. Compared to a lot of other locomotives, I noticed that the actual bell on CP rail locomotive is where, so here should be the bell, and just around here, where the actual 3 stripes are, should be your headlight. Now, the other thing I have noticed is, unlike other models such as in my next Conrail SD40, you're going to notice that the actual marker lights are painted over in this one. In real life, the actual marker lights aren't painted over. However, they're not in use from what I've noticed in the actual photos. I could be wrong. However, from what I've seen in photos, there is no evidence to support this. However, those are my 2 major issues. So I think as a whole, I'll probably be reserving this to a a trailing unit, just so on the front. I know it's a very small issue, but it matters to me when you notice it. So there isn't a lot of like railroad specific details, which is a bit disappointing, especially in this situation where, you know, it's an obvious thing. It's not like like a grab eye in the wrong place. It's the headlight. The bell is missing. So it is a big deal. And, you know, to a lot of people, it can be a big issue. So, you know, I'll give you a nice 360 here. The actual painting of the actual locomotive is actually really well done. The details are solid when they are right. But yeah, the radiators are, you know, quite well detailed. There's no actual flash or anything like that. The dynamic brakes look amazing. And not only that, the actual pad printing is actually solid in this. So one of the other things is to know is the lack of number boards. Now, in my actual thing, I did purchase this secondhand, so for a price of 135 at a train show. So it was secondhand. I can't verify if it did actually come in the kit, but from what I noticed, it wasn't in the bag. I did try looking for it, but it wasn't there. Also, the previous owner has swapped out the couplers for KDs, which is a good improvement. I do prefer KDs over the regular Kato style, but there's nothing wrong with the Kato ones. But basically on the same on the other side. Generally, all of the details are actually very sharp and all that. Now, there is no lift rings, and there is a lack of detail in the bogies, but that is because on the actual kit, and I will call it a kit bluntly, is because you will have to put in yourself. You know, it's a bit annoying per se. You know, you buy a locomotive for that cost that much, you do expect it to at least be able to skip out on all the fiddly bits yourself. Now, I do understand it in a lot of the Hornby locos and British locos, because a lot of the details that you would put on the front do interfere with the operation of being able to just a couple, right? For example, brake hoses and all that, they would interfere with just being able to connect the train. However, on American and basically anything with a knuckle coupler, there's no real excuse for it, right? Just because, well, in real life they were there. Even in model form, they don't really interfere with you actual running. So yeah, a bit annoying. And there's no real reason why it can't per se, I find, because in the box it actually fits perfectly fine and there's no damage to the handrail. I do understand in Atlas sense because the handrails are separate, but yeah, you know, it's just for ease of making sure that it arrives to you in one piece. I don't mind that, that's not a big deal. But yeah, the actual painting is good, but the lack of specific road details. It's not like it's a minor road detail. It's a pretty big one. But yeah, that's up to you to see if you are really bothered by it. I mean, personally, it is a little bit annoying for me. It's kind of spoiled it a little bit for me. But overall, it's a good model, but quite inaccurate in some ways. Okay, so now we're gonna go on to the Conrail, and there we go. Favorites. Honestly, this is what sort of made me go, yeah. Kato, they're pretty good. Now, as you can guess, with all Kato, you kind of have to kind of assemble it yourself, right? It doesn't look like this out the box. Now, it's the thing's actually a bit of an issue. It depends. If you just like something that comes out the box and you don't have to do anything, yeah, I do get it. Now, this one does come with the number boards already pre-fitted, and unlike the actual model itself that if you bought brand new out the box, it was a very, very simple fix. But on Conrail units, you will notice that the actual handrails next to the ladders are actually painted white. I'm guessing this is just to help crews when it's in like the middle of the night. It is a bit easy to actually spot the ladders. So on the actual model, it is actually painted. It's just a factory blue. Not too much of an issue. It was just a bit of a layer of white, and I just painted it over. So nothing like a big fix, but I guess why people would actually want to also expect it out the box, ready-made, sort of like my SD40. So there we have the nice clear 6345. I have weathered the bogies, but I will also be hopefully weathering the rest of this model. Now, looking at the side, you will notice there is a little bit of blemishes on the actual Conrail can opener. Now, this is one issue that I've noticed a lot of companies struggle with, not just Kato, but a lot of other ones, is white is a notoriously hard color to actually go over. So in this instance of where, it does actually make it, you will notice that the blue actually bleeds through here and here, where it isn't sort of a flat area. Is that realistic? It kind of is, and it will actually be really good looking for a weathering paint job. However, it would also be really nice if it was actually done right as well. But I do understand why it can't, because it is very hard to pad print. Somewhere like you see where those little hinges are. Let's see if I can zoom in just a little bit. So where you see those little hinge, if I remember correctly, they are the handles. Yeah, basically like little repositories where you can just grab a handle and all that. Now, I do understand why it has been a little bit difficult to paint white over. It's not a big deal. Personally, it would get covered over with weathering, but it would have been nice that, if it was done a bit better. Now, to focus on your second most important thing, where it says Conrail. The Conrail is actually really nicely done. There's no blue bleed through, and overall, it's just a nice model to look at. Onto the back. Let me zoom out for you. So on the back, just like the CP rail unit that we've sort of been discussing about, it does have the number boards already fitted, and it does have your Conrail and your handles. Now, one important thing to note about Kato, and it's up to you whether it's a big deal or not, is you do have to put every one of those separate details on. Kato is more than happy doing like things like the windows and your windscreen wipers. However, anything like the grab irons, you got to do it yourself. Is that a big deal? To some people it is. When you buy a $300 model, you do expect it to, come out the box pretty much ready. So I will sort of actually be a bit critical on Kato for that one, especially for some of the prices they are charging for HO these days. it's not very nice. It's not very nice when you open your box and you go, my new model, and then realize you've got to put everything else on. And it's more than just a normal detail pack. I know everyone goes on about like, oh, Atlas and its detail packs. The difference is, compared to, let's say, something like my C424 by Atlas, your handrail is in one piece, fair enough. But one important thing to know, and this is very important, you don't have to put every grab iron, handrail, everything. All you have to do, it's a one-piece thing, and it is your handrails. On the Conrail, the Kato ones, you have to put every single detail on. You know, what we're talking about is handrails, your little brake hoses, that's a big one. It's things like that. Even things like your brake cylinders, for example. Which leads to a very good looking, you know, a bogie and all that, and truck. But why do I have to do it myself? Especially if I paid all this money. You should be the ones doing it. So, up to you. But overall, I think it's a beautiful model. And yeah, generally, my only complaint is that, you know, it does require some assembly out the box. And not because, you know, I can't do it. It's just really annoying. You know, when you buy a model, you do want it to come together, you know, out the box. Now, that is actually something I've never noticed myself until this video, which is the little, God, what's it called? It's not builder's plate, but basically a designation for what it is and all that. So as you can see, I'm on like 4.3% zoom, and yeah, that is really sharp. So, you know, gotta give credit where credit is due to Kato for printing. Yeah, that is, yeah, fantastic, to be honest. Look, I mean, I say, you know, if you ever see one for a good price, get one. Definitely get one. These are solid machines, and they won't ever fail you. They pull good, they drive good, they don't require a lot of maintenance, just like the real thing. They just work. You know, it's not like a lot of other models where you got to worry about it. You know, that will it fail? Does it need a lot of work? Is it's gonna fall? Kato is expensive, but it just works. It just works out the box. And that means a lot for a lot of people. And honestly, because of that, I will actually recommend this model for anyone who actually wants to get it. Especially if you can get a good price. Especially if you're getting a good price. In my opinion, this is better than your average Athern in terms of running quality. But I do feel like Athern does, especially some of the newer SD45s and like the tunnel motors, you know, they are a little bit better quality. However, it is better than a lot of your sort of, I guess, beginner, maybe sort of like, you know, more budget friendly ones. It is better running than that, and I would say on par is probably better, some of the best running locomotives on my layout, but it does have a lack of detail. And the fact that you do have to assemble it basically out the box is a bit disappointing, especially for how much you will have to pay. But overall, it's a good recommend. If you see one, good price, get one. Especially if it's a new livery. To be honest, you won't be disappointed. You know, on the second-hand market, they're usually there to be found. But yeah, converting it to DCC can be a little bit funny. I will say that, just because the way Kato does its board and all that, very funky. But overall, it's a good model. Just get one. Can't go wrong. Now, in conclusion, I just want to say thank you for watching this video. It has been a pleasure sort of recording this one, just because, you know, it is one of my favorite locomotives, and just because, you know, some people have been helping me out with getting some sounds and some photos. But yeah, thank you for watching this video, and I'll give you a bit of like a few more, what's the word? 360s, that's it. Yeah, well, I'll give you a few more 360s, you'll enjoy that, we'll admire the beauty of these locomotives. But overall, thank you for watching this video, and if you want to subscribe, that'd be lovely. But yeah, come again soon. I'll have plenty of more videos, especially if you're a big fan of CPU Rail and Union Pacific in the next few weeks. Alright, thank you.